Hello, and welcome to My Week in Baseball. I'm your host, Phil Estruth Harrison. You're listening to Season 3, Episode 6. All episodes are available in both video and podcast format at myweekinbaseball.com or subscribe on YouTube at My Week in Baseball, and be sure to click the like button. As always, thank you to Rose Petal Studios for the artwork and logos created for this show and website. To view more, visit rosepetalstudios.com. Also, thanks to Brunjo Productions for our intro music. Learn more at brunjo.com. Well, today we've got Seattle's starting pitcher Bryan Woo and his amazing start to the 2024 season. A new quest to hit 400, this time by Cleveland outfielder Steven Kwan. Toronto's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and an unusual trick with the bat. Major League Baseball leaders in wins above replacement and what it really means. The A's outfielder Miguel Andujar and something statistically unique. Of course, we'll also have a timely Blimerick, our baseball limerick, and our blast from the past, featuring the 1974 A's along the way. So let's get right to it. We'll start with our trivia teaser. Today's is a two-parter. So part one, is it possible to have an on-base percentage that is lower than your batting average? You might have to think about that. And part two, if so, explain how it could happen. Next, Seattle's Bryan Woo. So he's coming into this week, the week of June 17, 2024, with some amazing statistics. As a starting pitcher who's had 6 starts so far this year, he has the best earned run average ever in the history of the Mariners. And he tops one of the all-time greats. So Bryan Woo in first place in 6 starts has a 1.07 earned run average. The next best, legend Randy Johnson, has an ERA of 1.21 in 6 starts. So Randy Johnson did that in 1995. Of course, Bryan Woo is doing it this year, 2024. So let's take a little bit of a look at what Bryan Woo is up to this year. So we're going to talk a little bit more later in the broadcast about wins above replacement, but Woo is already at 1.4 wins above replacement for the year, which is an excellent start, with about maybe 40% of the season or so underway. And in his 6 starts so far, he's 3 wins and no losses. I already mentioned the ERA, 1.07. He's pitched 33 innings, so he's got a ways to go. But in those 33 innings, he's given up just 16 hits and only 4 earned runs and only 2 walks. 2 walks in 33 innings. That is remarkable. And only 16 hits. And there's hardly anybody on base. He's currently got an ERA plus of 351. The baseline, of course, being 100 for league average. So what's that? 251% better than league average. His fielding independent pitching, his FIP is 2.38. So, roughly double is actually actual earned run average. So in theory, he should be giving up a bit more, but still, that's incredible. His WHIP, walks and hits per innings pitched, 0.5. If you want to get technical, 0.535, but about half a runner per inning. I mean, excellent is around 1. If you're like 0.9 or something, you could be a league leader. And if you're 1 or just barely over 1, you're excellent. So half a runner per inning is incredible. 4.3 hits per 9, 0.3 of a home run per 9, so he's barely giving up any extra base hits, half a walk per 9, and about 6.5 strikeouts per 9. So his strikeout to walk ratio is 12 strikeouts for every walk, and that is absolutely incredible. So congratulations to Bryan Woo, the right-handed pitcher for the Seattle Mariners. He is in his age 24 season. Bryan Woo did pitch 87 innings last year. The rookie requirement is 50. So last year would have been qualified as his rookie year. So this really is his sophomore season at age 24. But what an outstanding season he's having. Next up, Steven Kwan, Cleveland Guardians left fielder, and his quest to hit 400. So coming into this week, the week of June 17, 2024, Kwan was hitting .398, which would lead the league, although I believe it's just shy of the necessary plate appearances due to an injury. Let's take a quick look. Cleveland, as of, and I'm recording this on Tuesday, June 18, Cleveland had played 69 games, and Kwan has appeared in 43 of those. Now, according to baseballreference.com, they do show his batting average bolded, and bolded typically means you're leading the league. So he may qualify, if so, just barely, but he's currently hitting .398. His career batting average is .297, so he's about a career 300 hitter. This is his age 26 season. Really is only his third season, though. So 2022, at age 24, his first season, he hit exactly .298. Last year, again, in his second full season, he hit .268. But this year, a whopping .398. So this guy is really hitting for contact. His strikeout to walk ratio is amazing. You know how so many players these days strike out an incredible number of times. They might strike out in a full season 150 times. It wouldn't be that uncommon, certainly 100 plus. Well, Steven Kwan has only struck out 14 times this year, and he's walked 17. So he's walked more than he's struck out, and his career is exactly even. 149 walks, 149 strikeouts. So this is a guy who makes contact and gets on base. So his career on base percentage is .368, which is excellent. Last year, .340, came in third rookie of the year in his rookie season, but in his rookie season, .373 on base percentage. So he does get on base a lot. He doesn't hit for a lot of power, minimal home runs, single digits, 6, 5, and 4 so far this year. Actually, that would probably translate to maybe 10 or so. It'd be the most ever if he hit that many this year. And he'll have a little bit of doubles, 25 his rookie year, 36 last year, 10 so far this year, which is maybe 25 or so if you translate that for a full season. So he's a real contact type hitter. He gets on base frequently. Last year he did walk 70 times, so he does walk quite a bit along with the high batting average, and he's been terrific in those 43 games for the Cleveland Guardians. He has scored 39 runs. Last year he scored 93, and even as a rookie, 89. So he's scoring, he's batting toward the top of the lineup, and he is scoring, around 90 runs this year. I think it could be more, but he did have that injury early this season, which has limited his gameplay a little. He's also an excellent defender in left field. So in his 2 previous seasons, his rookie year, he won the Gold Glove, and last year, his sophomore year, he also won another Gold Glove. So you'll hear more about Steven Kwan, and we will keep track of his quest to hit 400 this season. Next up, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and his bat stuck in the net. Are you kidding me? So just about a week ago, on Monday, June 10 of this year, 2024, the Blue Jays were playing the Brewers in Milwaukee, and Vladdy steps to the plate in the top of the 4th inning. He fouls off a ball and lets go of the bat. It slips out of his hand, and it flies into the net above the Jays' dugout. It's actually stuck in the netting way up high. It's got to be, 20 feet or more in the air. So between innings, his teammates try to knock it loose by throwing a ball to try to hit the end of the bat and jar it loose from the netting. It doesn't work. The game continues, it goes on, and finally a long pole is brought out with a hook on the end, and they use the hook to try to tap the end of the bat loose, and then finally are able to loop the hook around part of the bat and pull it and pull it. It eventually falls, drops on top of the dugout. A fan reaches and tries to get it. I don't blame him. That would be quite a collector's item. But they do get the bat back. It takes 2 innings to do it. So this happened in the 4th. It's the 6th inning before the bat is finally retrieved. And then they hand it back to Vladdy, and he is seen giving the bat a kiss. So that hopefully is a lucky bat for him. And to me, another crazy experience. Bat flying into the netting. Have you ever seen that before? So next up, our Blimerick, our baseball limerick that we have every episode. And this time, it's a tribute to Vlad's bat. So here we go. Blue Jays Vlad isn't fretting, but he isn't forgetting. When his bat flies away, how long will it stay with the handle stuck in the netting? Next up, war leaders going into this week, middle of June. So let's talk a little bit about who those war leaders are. This is wins above replacement, and the idea is this is how much better a player is than replacement level. So I'm going to talk through who those people are, and then we'll tell a little bit more about what the definition of war is and what that really means. So in the National League, the leaders in wins above replacement, these should be the best overall players because it includes both offense and defense, which would give an advantage to position players, say, over a designated hitter, unless I suppose you were an especially bad defender, in which case you might be better off with war just being a designated hitter. Anyhow, the leaders in the National League are Ketel Marte. He's 30 years old, second baseman for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Mookie Betts, who I'm sure you've heard of. He's the 31-year-old shortstop this year for the Dodgers, who unfortunately just broke his hand. He's going to be out for a while. He also plays second base, and previously he played outfield, right field, and center field, and won the MVP back in 2018 with the Red Sox when he hit an incredible .346 with more than 30 homers and stolen bases, along with multiple gold gloves he has received in the outfield. That's Mookie Betts. Anyway, he's currently in second place in the National League in war leaders. And then third place is a designated hitter. So this tells you how good of a season this player is having. Shohei Ohtani. He's 29-year-old DH for the Dodgers. So without any defense adding to his wins above replacement, he is third in the National League. Let's talk about the American League now. I'm sure you've heard of this player, Aaron Judge. He's 32 years old, center fielder and corner outfielder for the Yankees, leading the American League in WAR. And I didn't give you those numbers, but Judge's WAR is just over 5 coming into this week, 5.1. He would lead all of the National League players. Marte was 4.0, Betts 3.8, and Ohtani 3.5. So Judge would lead them all. Second place in the AL, Gunnar Henderson, who's the young 23-year-old shortstop for Baltimore who won Rookie of the Year last season in 2023. He's also played some third base as well as shortstop. Henderson has a 5.0 WAR. Again, he would lead all the players in the National League. And then third in the AL, Bobby Witt Jr., another young star. He's age 24 and playing shortstop for the Kansas City Royals. And I get this WAR information from stathead.com. It's part of baseball-reference.com. It's the paid version. And I get this from a newsletter through stathead.com. It's really a baseball reference newsletter, and they feature pieces like this. So it's really information that's terrific, and you can look up almost anything that you'd want to. Finally, onto the WAR leaders for pitching. So in the National League, it's Ranger Suarez of the Philadelphia Phillies, Ronaldo Lopez of the Atlanta Braves, and Shota Imanaga of the Chicago Cubs. And I have to mention those three players because Ranger Suarez, Ronaldo Lopez, and Shota Imanaga are all on my fantasy points league baseball team this year. So, so far so good with the three of them. In the American League, believe it or not, a Detroit Tiger pitcher leads the league in WAR. In fact, his WAR of 3.6 leads all of baseball for starting pitchers. Tariq Skubal, that's terrific. And then Tyler Anderson of the Angels, surprisingly to me, is second. And Eric Fed of the Chicago White Sox, the lowly Chicago White Sox, he's having a terrific year, even though the team is not, comes in third. But let's just talk a little bit more about what that actually means. What is the definition of wins above replacement? According to MLB.com, it is a way of measuring the value in all facets of the game, meaning defense and offense, right? And I suppose running everything, right? By deciphering how many wins he's worth, that player's worth, compared to a replacement level player at the same position. And one of the things I think that is important here is that it is position adjusted. So the example given here is that if a shortstop and someone who plays first have the same overall production, both on offense and defense and on the base paths, meaning everything else is equal, but one's a shortstop, one plays first, the shortstop's going to have a better WAR, a better wins above replacement, because that position has lower production from the replacement level. So you're considering the shortstop and their production versus the replacement level of another shortstop, say coming up from AAA, and the first baseman versus the replacement level of a first baseman. Generally, you're going to get more value from the first baseman. And then it goes on to describe the formulas, which I won't go into unless you're a mathematician. But there are various versions of WAR. There's F-WAR, which is Fangraphs WAR. There's also B-WAR, sometimes called R-WAR, which is Baseball References WAR. And so they are done a little bit differently. And there's also something called WARP, W-A-R-P, which is the Baseball Prospectus version of wins above replacement. That's a wins above replacement player. That's why they call that WARP. So there's WAR and WARP. They're the same thing by different organizations, but they're all doing the same thing. How valuable is this player compared to their replacement level? So it does let you compare people against the league as a whole, and it can also be useful comparing era to era, because you're seeing those players against replacement level at their time, and you're including defense as a factor, which is also useful. So those are the leaders coming into this week in mid-June 2024 for wins above replacement. Next up, let's answer that trivia question. So if you remember, it's a two-parter. So the first part is it possible to have an on-base percentage that is lower than your batting average? And if so, explain how it could happen. Well, the second part of the question almost answers the first part, doesn't it? Why would I ask the question if it weren't possible? It is, of course, possible. How could you have an on-base percentage lower than your batting average, right? You would tend to think it's the other way around. Your on-base percentage is always higher, except in the case where you never walk and you have a sacrifice. Because if you remember, batting average is the number of official at-bats, or the number of hits you get divided by the number of official at-bats. On-base percentage, however, is not based on at-bats. On-base percentage is based on plate appearances. Well, what counts as a plate appearance? Well, anything. A walk would count as a plate appearance, but it's not an at-bat. A sacrifice fly is a plate appearance. A sacrifice bunt is a plate appearance. So there are other, a hit by pitch would be a plate appearance. So there are other things that can count toward plate appearances. So your plate appearances are nearly always higher than your at-bats. Anyway, this particular situation did occur recently when looking at the stats of the current A's player, Miguel Andujar. So he's a great example to help explain this. You may remember him. He was a promising third baseman for the Yankees back at age 23 when he actually came in second for Rookie of the Year. This would have been in 2018. Miguel Andujar in 2018 hit 297, 47 doubles, 27 homers, 527 slugging, and he was 30% above league average offensively. So what a great start. But his career took a bit of a tailspin due to injuries, some lack of playing time. This season for Oakland, he did begin the year on the injured list, and after his first 9 games back, his batting average was actually higher than his on-base percentage. So I just explained how that is all possible, but that is what makes it crazy, because he did have a sacrifice fly and he never walked. So the sacrifice fly, he doesn't get on base, only the hits he got on base without any walks or any hit by pitches or anything else thrown in. So it is possible to have that happen. Andujar does seldom walk, so we can take a quick look at what he's doing right now. So Miguel Andujar started for a few at-bats, a few games in 2017, but for all intents and purposes, his rookie year, 2018, he was terrific. He came in second for Rookie of the Year. He hit 297. I just read all those other stats to you. It was amazing. And his career has really taken a tailspin since then. Looks to me mostly like injuries, limited playing time, and this is really like his first year back, and now he's age 29, and he's doing quite well. So as of this recording, he actually now has played in 20 games. He's hitting .305, and now his on-base percentage actually is, as you would normally expect, slightly higher. His on-base percentage is .318. He actually has walked 2 times since initially looking at his data after just like 9 games. But just the fact to know that it's possible to have a higher batting average than on-base percentage is pretty interesting. He's being a great value for Oakland this year, and I hope that he really can turn it around. He's mostly playing left field, but he has also filled in us as DH and at first base. So we'll keep an eye on Miguel Andujar, and he is the example of the answer for today's trivia question. So next up, our blast from the past. And as in many episodes, I do talk about the A's, still the Oakland A's for this year. But given the fact that this is 2024, and exactly 50 years ago, in 1974, the A's won the World Series 4-1 over the Dodgers. So I just wanted to take a quick look, our blast from the past, at that team who was on the 1974 Oakland A's. Well, of course, they won 90 games. They finished first in the American League West back when there were 2 divisions, and they beat the Baltimore Orioles in the AL Championship Series. Their manager back then was Al Dark, and the general manager was still, at that time, the much hated, at least by the team, Charlie Finley, and they were still playing at that time in the Coliseum, back then the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. But the one interesting thing to me was the attendance for them. It was a little less than 900,000, 845,000 for the season, 11 of 12. Now, I'm sure that's the 12 teams that would have been in the AL at that time. So they were 11 out of 12 in the league, even though they won the World Series. But on that team, those of you who are A's fans will remember the catcher, the primary catcher anyway, Ray Fosse. Had a horrible batting average that year, though, of 196. Gene Tennis at first base. Tennis only batted .211, but he actually had a very solid year, was 30% above league average offensively with 26 home runs during his play, 17 doubles, and 110 walks. And it really is the walks that set him apart. So even though he only hit 211, he had a 367 on base percentage. Dick Green, the primary second baseman, also a pretty low batting average, 213. Bert Campaneris at short, batted 290 and a 347 on base percentage. And Campaneris stole 34 bases that year, but he didn't lead the team. We'll get to that in a minute. Sal Bando at third base, 243 with 22 homers, 21 doubles. He was also 30% above league average, and he had 86 walks. Joe Rudy, who many of you will remember, a 293 batting average, also 22 home runs. So far 3 players with over 20 home runs. And then the leader in stolen bases for that team, Bill North in center field, 54 stolen bases, 54 steals. And of course, in right field, the other 20-plus home run hitter, Reggie Jackson, had 29 home runs to lead the team, batted 289, a 391 on base percentage to go along with his 86 walks and 905 OPS, which is a 166 OPS plus. Remember, 100 is the baseline. And then they list as designated hitter Jesus Alou. So fun offensive team there. And just a quick mention of the starting pitching staff. Catfish Hunter was 25-12 with a 2.49 ERA, pitched over 300 innings. You just don't see that anymore. Vida Blue was 17-15 with a 3.25 ERA and 282 innings. Ken Holtzman, 19-17, 3.07 ERA, 255 innings. And then Dave Hamilton, 7-4, 3.15. He was down to 117 innings. So really, Catfish Hunter, Vida Blue, and Ken Holtzman got by far the vast majority of the games started. 41 games started for Hunter, 40 games started for Vida Blue, and 38 games started for Ken Holtzman. So they made up a good chunk of the team's starts. And then, of course, one of the key pitchers out of the bullpen, their official closer at the time, Raleigh Fingers, 9 wins, 5 losses, 2.65 ERA. And at that time, saves weren't as big of a deal. He only had 18 saves, if you will, but he pitched 119 innings. Can you imagine a relief pitcher? Today, what is it, 65 innings would be, 60, 65, 70 would be a lot of innings, 119 innings. So you're talking about multiple times going out there and closing out the game over a couple of innings or more. It's not just the 9th inning closer. So those are some of the key players on that team. They still had Blue Moon Odom listed as a relief pitcher who did come in out of the bullpen some that year with a 3.81 ERA. And a player whose name I remember, Darrell Knowles, he was 3-3, 4.22. But that is the 1974 Oakland A's, a tribute to them, and 50 years since their championship against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So that's all for today, my friends. Join us next time because honestly, what can be better than talking baseball? As always, I'm your host, Phil Estruth Harrison. We'll see you next time on My Week in Baseball.